Hey friends, Darren Bailey here with you with another informational-packed episode. I cannot tell you and express my thanks of just of your sincerity, your consistency of desiring to learn more about how we take our government back and desiring to learn more about what our current government is even doing. So we're going to have an amazing episode today. I'm here with Matt Renaud. Matt is ROE, Regional Office of Education Superintendent in District 13, down around the Jefferson County area, so kind of south central Illinois. He is a pastor at Donahoe Prairie Christian Church. I've known Matt for a while. I've never really been able to have a good conversation like we're going to have today. So what I hope to do is just to inform you of what these regional office of education positions, what these people do, how important their work is. I served for 17 years on the North Clay School Board of Education, and 12 of those as board president. We do a lot of work with the Regional Office of Education, and a good superintendent can actually have a serious impact on education. With the woes that we're having today, it just takes good people. It takes us understanding what the problems are. It takes us getting engaged and directing change. And hopefully, by the end of this conversation, you will have a better grasp on your role as a parent, your role as a taxpayer, your role as a concerned citizen. So, Matt, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come in here. Tell us a little bit about who Matt Renaud is. Just talk about where you were raised, your position with the church. Tell us about Matt.
First of all, let me say thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you. I've been watching your podcast, and I think they're enlightening to the public. I think it's a great cause.
Thank you.
I grew up in Jefferson County, country boy, kind of a farm boy, and I went to a little bitty school called Grand Prairie Grade School. I had a great experience at school. Absolutely loved school. Didn't like to miss school, and I had some fantastic teachers who really spent time with me and took the time to get to know me relationally and spoke into my life. So my schooling experience was a positive one, and I think that's what compelled me to want to go into education in the first place. And later in life, I became interested in ministry. I was called to ministry, and I preached at Fouch Christian Church under Jerry Wilson. I was his associate for a number of years, and eventually landed over at Donahoe Prairie Christian Church, where I'm the I guess you would call it the senior minister, and the only one. So been married for 30 years this August to my wonderful wife.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
It's been a blessing. She is a wonderful woman. We have 4 kids and 9 grandkids. My one son has adopted several children.
Wow.
And we have one coming, which I've counted in the 9 because life is the most important thing. So
it is. Thank you.
is.
And we may have a conversation one of these days about that, because you have no idea how many people reach out desiring to adopt. And unfortunately, there are so many hurdles and that a person has to go through. So I'll chat with you about that after the show, and you may have some ideas later on. We may there are a lot of people out there hungry for that and desiring that, but it's a difficult thing in Illinois.
So true. I think we have about 3,000 children who are ready for adoption
Yes.
in Illinois.
Yes. Thank you. Well, thank you for doing that.
Sure.
I'm glad to hear that about your family.
Yeah, it's great. So, obviously, became a teacher when I was in my 20s and went to work for the Regional Office of Education, the alternative school, for 4 years in Jefferson County. I believe that was 1996. Job market was tough, and I went into the alternative school numerous times and begged for a job. And I even offered to teach free for the first semester because it was just really a hard time, and finding teaching opportunities was tough. So eventually I was hired, and after a couple of years of teaching, I became the assistant principal. And at the same time, I was going back to school to be a principal. And 4 years after starting there, I went to Sandoval Elementary. I believe I was 26 when I was hired, 27 the first day of school. No idea what I was doing. And that was a hard time. It was great, though. It was a wonderful experience. Had a wonderful mentor in Dwayne Baldridge. And spent 4 years there, and then moved into the superintendency. All of my roles have been dual roles, super pals. I've been the principal and the superintendent, so it's been a busy life.
Hard worker.
It demands that.
Yes.
And it shapes you to be what you need to be because the demand is there. So I've spent most of my time as a school administrator, and 3 years ago, Ron Daniels asked me to come on and as his assistant, and that was a great experience. And Ron retired a little early after the passing of his wife of many years. It was a tough situation for him. So I'm finishing his term actually right now.
Wow.
And I ran in this most recent election and was elected. So I'll start my term July 1 for my first 4 years.
Okay. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that with the recent elections that the new people have already started, but they haven't.
Right.
So
some have, but this particular office has not.
Got it. Yeah, because you're
Right.
okay. All right. Well, you put a lot in there, and I appreciate that. I got on the school board in 1995, and you're right. Schools were being shorted money by the state, and I found that out to be true. And it was difficult to hire. We encouraged a lot of students from our school to go and be a teacher, and they did. And then when they'd come back, we always weren't able to put people on. It was a tough time, and I appreciate you reminding us of that. So tell us a little bit, break the ROE down. What are the responsibilities in conjunction with parents, children, taxpayers, and schools?
Absolutely. I think every role in public service has accountability for and accountability to.
Yes.
And I think we have to break those out and understand those well.
Love that.
So first and foremost, we're public servants. And the ROE position is unique to our state. Not every state has this position. I think it's a really important one. And if you'll give me a chance later, I'll talk about why I think that's really important.
Awesome.
First of all, we have two primary functions. One is service, and the other one is accountability. And we're a service organization to teachers and support staff throughout the region and to parents. And we're accountable to the voters, and that's what's unique. It is the only politically elected official in the state, and we serve as an intermediary between the State Board of Education and the public school districts. And so we spend a lot of time assisting school districts with advice in a lot of different domains. And as far as the accountability side, we work with health, life, safety, professional development, budgeting, tax levies, a host of different kinds of domains. So we're responsible for a good number of things in the public school.
No, I appreciate that. So no, that's great. You talked about the why important. Let's talk about that, because right now, public education's under assault. Many different reasons. It's kind of got a black eye in Illinois. What do we do to steer that, turn that? What's your perception on that?
Right. The vision for public education is actually very good, because everybody deserves accessibility to opportunity, and I think that can be well done. But the problem is, if we don't use something well, we lose it, or it gets morphed into something that's not supposed to be. And I think that's the unique role of this elected position, is because part of a public school system is to forward the values of a community, and beyond just teaching the disciplines. I think those are important roles, and we uniquely understand what the values of our communities are. So I stand in that position where I get to help protect those kinds of things. And I hear you talk a lot about local control. That's near and dear to my heart, and that speaks to a unique situation. I think a lot of people may or may not understand, and I think the less people are inclined to participate, the less likely they are to lose benefit. And the further we are from making decisions, whether they're ethical decisions, financial decisions, curricular decisions, the further we are, the further we place ourselves from that, the worse the efficiency becomes. And I think that's the essence of government. We can't help those things. There's inefficiency there. So the decisions that are made in the home are probably the best decisions. And then the decisions made one step up, which would be the community participation, because we're accountable to one another. Those are probably a little more solid. But as we go up the chain, the efficiency is lost, and we lose both authority and we lose responsibility. And I think it centralizes powers at one end. And what we have right now is the unique opportunity to keep that whole for our communities. And I think I stand strongly for that. It's important to me, and I think it's important to our communities. I don't know that we understand how essential that is for our communities, to our state, and to our nation.
I appreciate that. I really do, and I mean that speaks volumes because I like to remind people. My wife Cindy and I, and full disclosure, we created after I served for 17 years on the North Clay School Board. We a little bit later we opened up, founded Full Armor Christian Academy, and a lot of people ask, well, what's up with that? No, we have some pretty amazing schools here in Southern Illinois, and especially at North Clay at Louisville, and we just wanted to create a Christ-centered. There's a lot of people who homeschool, give people reason to bring their kids, children together and learn, and if nothing else, focus a little more on Jesus. And since public schools kind of inhibit on doing that, but I always like to preface to let people know that private education will never replace public education. Where we know that we must have there's always that place for public education, and we've just got, and it takes good people to get involved. And during my tenure as on the school board, we would beg parents. Cindy founded the PTO while we were on there, because we realized we need parents in our schools. There was a group of parents that founded a Watchdogs, Dads of Great Students, and the goal was every day to have a dad in the school system. And I'll never forget that the first time that I served with that. I mean, these kids, the children are so hungry just to be loved on and to be encouraged. So the first time that I served that, my cousin Curtis Thompson, he taught kindergarten. Very first hour of school, so I go in there and I'm sitting, kind of helping out, and these kindergarten students, they're all half asleep and everything. That he'd say, "Yes, Mr. Thompson," and I mean, it's just like I went to him afterwards and I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "You need to be paying us to do this. So I can't. This is too easy." Well, the way the program was set up, they moved us around to a different class every hour. After lunch, I was back in his classroom. Total different scenario. The kids had had lunch. The kids had been out on the PE grounds. Now they're back in for the rest of the afternoon, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I went and apologized, and I said, okay, I get it now. This is I don't think you could pay me enough to do this, so it takes a special person to be a teacher. Abraham Lincoln said in the 1860s, the future of our nation is determined of what's being taught in the classroom today. And I see sometimes, with our colleges and with our, schools and some of this, some of the stuff that I fought as 2 years as a state rep and 2 years as a state senate, sometimes maybe as an attack on our children. And to your point, we read these headlines and we see what happens, and everybody's like, what happened here? Well, you weren't involved in the process this whole time. Now we've got to get ourselves involved, and we've got some work to do. So where do you see public education going in the next several years? What direction, what vision would you cast if you were able to paint the picture?
That's actually a very difficult question, because I think that's up to the people and the level of commitment that they're going to give and the level of responsibility they're willing to bear. And if we reassume our responsibilities like we should, first in the family, in the home, and then as close to home as possible, I think that we can see a transformation back to a restoration for good school districts and strong communities. I think I'm hopelessly optimistic, and I believe that truly can happen.
We have to be.
We have to be. And sometimes that takes very painful, uncomfortable, sometimes contentious decisions. And I think that if people are willing to do that, and we can compel people to see that vision well enough, I think that we can make great strides. But if not, we're relinquishing authority and control to someone else who, and we say someone else, we are the government. We relinquish that to an idea. And I think that vision is much easier to sell, because I think there's two competing visions of the world. Thomas Sowell says that, and you may have read some of his work, and I believe this was in Conflict of Visions. He said, conflicts of interest rule the day, but conflicts of visions rule history. And that is so true.
Wow.
We've become so focused on the conflicts of the day, but that we forget that we're really warned against conflicts of visions.
Yes.
And the conflict of vision for self and the conflict of vision for delay of gratification and delay of self-interest. Those are competing interests, and it's much easier to sell one where you're gratifying someone instantly on self-desire. Because obviously, if I tell you I'm going to give you something, it's going to come easy. That's very attractive to you. When I tell someone they're going to have to work hard and self-sacrifice, and that virtue and character and things are going to be refined and refined in struggle, that doesn't look so attractive. But in the end, one works and the other one doesn't for society.
Wow.
And I think that's what I'm hopeful for. But I think people need to understand the levity of it. And I think it's going to require people to slow down, stop their life a little bit, and unpack and maybe prune. And I think people say that, oh, that's a churchy word. Well, really, it is and it isn't. I think everything has a spiritual element to it in our lives.
Yes.
Pruning is unique in that sometimes you have to take things that are really kind of good and they're living and they're producing some good, and you have to chop them off because there's something better that can happen from that. And that's essential. We are ruthlessly burdened and hurried in this world right now. And so we've just filled our jar with a bunch of things that really aren't the most important things in life. I'd love to see families just stop for a while, pause, and really look at what's the most important and put those big, heavy things in first and prioritize life and slow down. I forget who said this, but they said the cause of the plague of our day, so to speak, is what keeps us from obtaining a righteous living or having the standard of life that we want to is the amount of hurry. It keeps us from developing to what we would really desire because it distracts us from the most important things. And so if we could ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives, we could take time to pause and then put the elemental things in there.
Wow.
And I would like to see that. I was really interested in what you said about the fathers. I think that's a really important thing.
So would you agree that that's missing or maybe prohibited in public education today?
What part?
Just this. We're kind of on some thin ice here. I get it. So just be brutally honest with me. But what do we do to restore? It's all about the people. I get that.
Sure.
But from what I've seen in Springfield, this barrage recently during the time that I served on public education concerns me. Are we back to the stage of, we've got to get people involved? I get that. How do we get people back involved? What's an easy way to get them back into seeing what's going on into the classrooms? What would you invite? What would you inspire or suggest on how we reconnect parents with the school system so that we can get back to some of these principles of which public education started from?
First of all, I think as leaders, which you mentioned hiring superintendents, I think who you hire is the most important decision you'll make as a school board. Very, very important. I think they, first of all, have to have that vision. And what you say and how you say things to people is so important. If parents understand that you are not just an inconvenience in this partnership of education, because truly the primary portion of education, the responsibility for that is the parent. It's not the school.
Love it.
It is the parent.
Love it. So that's what I love about you. You're a pastor, and being a ROE superintendent. That's why you nailed it. I appreciate that. Sure. I'm sorry.
I think that I just think that's elemental, and I think that message needs to resonate in everything that you do. So when you have a vision for something, all things, all messages, all programming, all things need to line up behind that vision. So if truly parents are partners, then you treat them like partners. They're not just an invitee to an event. They're participants in the event. They're partakers in the event. They help organize the event. When you're talking about discipline, they're invited to the table. It's important because they care about their school and their community. The expectations need to be relayed in the handbooks. All those kinds of things are so important. And there's so many ways that parents could be involved, but they haven't been for so long, so the school has taken that responsibility. And when you take responsibility, you also have to give someone the authority. And so you can't be upset with a school for having responsibility and authority when you're not willing to have it yourself. And so parents need to know that they need to have both of those in their child's life, and the school would welcome that, because ultimately communities and schools would be better, and they'd be thankful for it.
Yes. So what are some things that you've seen in some of the schools that you represent? Obviously, we can attend school board meetings.
Absolutely.
I beg people attend. You know, so many things that I've taken for granted. You know, the court system proceedings, just to show up in a courtroom, you know, and listen to a proceeding to see how the system works, to show up at a county board meeting, to show up at a school board meeting, and just listen, just be an active a participant, just to listen and see what's going on, to run for school board. Maybe to start the local parent-teacher organization and you know, to develop that relationship with your child's teacher. What else? What are the Watchdogs program that I talked about? There are so many things at our fingertips, and I know we're families are working hard. People are working 2 and 3 jobs and long hours. I understand that, but at the end of the day, the single most important thing in life is that child, because that child represents our future. Are there any other things that you've witnessed in some of your schools that maybe we could throw out as an idea to a parent that is listening today, thinking, wow, that's an awesome idea. I'm going to look into that.
Sure. I think there are a number of different things. Anytime you're invited to the table for anything, whether it's reviewing curriculum, if you're talking about discipline advisory committees, being on the school board, attending school board meetings, taking seriously your chance to have parent-teacher conferences and actually having an active voice in that, and learning what's going on in the classroom, asking your kids every single day what's going on at school. So important. Not just, well, the standard answer from every kid is what. What'd you learn today?
Nothing.
Right? But that's not really true.
Right.
A whole lot goes on in school.
Right.
And then taking the time to know your teachers as people and having a relationship with them in their life and being supportive. I think that's a really important thing too. In a confusing society, the message we often send back to school districts is that you're not supported. And when a teacher finally has to take some control and authority over a situation, which they often do, that's part of being an adult and running a classroom and managing schools, be supportive, because children they're developing into responsible adults. And most teachers, I find, are very good people.
Right.
And most districts care so much about hiring good people.
Right.
We have fantastic teachers in our area, fantastic administrators, and they really, truly care. And the worst thing we can do is always be accusatory towards the school. We need to be supportive too.
Right.
And that's important. And you're more likely to be heard if the first time you contact somebody isn't a negative thing. So if you're a parent, if you build a relationship with a teacher and your contacts are regular and you're involved in their life and in the life of the school, whenever there is an issue, it's so much easier to resolve those issues, because we come to the table as partners, as friends, and that's important. Not that there's not accountability both ways, there is, and I often would advise my teachers the same kind of to forward the same kind of compelling message. Contact parents early, contact them often, and when you finally need them for something because there's an issue, then
it works both ways.
It
That's
works
good.
both ways. It's reciprocity, and we need more of that. We can't have a healthy dialogue anywhere, it seems like, in society, because we're so polarized.
Yeah.
Because we don't come to the table for a common set of vision.
Wow.
A common set of goals and visions. So I think there's just a barrage of ways people can be involved.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Remind me again what counties that you serve.
Jefferson, Marion, Clinton, and Washington.
Okay. And I'm going to bust it down one more time. So off of my memory, my interaction with the ROE, serving on the school board, and then after, many times when maybe a family wanted to move into a district to partial their property so that their child could attend a particular district for a particular reason, so that entailed 2 things: partialing out of one school district into another. I remember many times the ROE putting on training seminars for staff, administration, and teachers. Is there anything that I know that's a pretty broad range? What else? What other responsibilities directly come to the ROE's office?
Some of the larger responsibilities are regulatory. So whatever's in that all-consuming school code book.
So whatever this Illinois State Board of Education, when they and we've heard a lot of that the last several years. So when we hear of them making changes to the rules or to the code, then you make sure that the local school boards understand what that means.
So code comes from the legislative branch, as you're a participant.
Yes.
And so those pieces of legislation get placed into the school code. Things become public act, and we're affected several different ways: school code, statute, and then from that, which is also the most important piece of this pie, is who's making the rules. The rules are everything. And so I, as a regional superintendent, I'm the person that evaluates whether or not someone's complying with rules, statutes.
Yes.
We visit our schools regularly. The statute says that we need to be involved in schools on a regular basis when it comes to looking for compliance. So compliance visits, which take a lot of my time because I have 45 public school districts and I believe 11 recognized non-publics. And we also
hit on that. Let's make sure we understand that, because the ROE encompasses all education.
That's true. So there are really four pieces of maybe five kinds of education that happen in any area. We have regular public education. That's public elementary schools, high schools, and then we have recognized non-public schools, which are the parochial schools, and those schools will comply with these minimum standards the state says. You must have these elemental disciplines being taught in your school. You have a regular calendar, you have policies that people can understand, those kinds of things, and basic rights that are protected. And they choose to do that because transferring credits from one institution to another is seamless, and then colleges, public colleges and junior colleges recognize those standards. So there's that, and then there's the non-recognized, the ones that, for instance, don't want to have any regulations placed upon them, and that's the right to do that. And then we have homeschool parents who choose to educate their kids at home.
Yes.
And we also have parents who keep kids at home and don't educate them. So I'd say we have all of those.
Well, I did not realize that.
Well, there's saying that we homeschool, and then there's actually homeschooling. We have some homeschool parents that are fantastic, and their kids come sometimes in and out of public schools, and they're above par. And then we have some kids who come back from homeschool and they've done nothing.
I understand. Yeah, okay.
So we have all of those situations.
Yep, okay.
So we're a storehouse of help for all of those situations. So if someone comes and says, hey, where can I look for this? I help them.
That's awesome. And the ROE 13, did you say, is the second largest in the state?
I believe that's right. Don't quote me on it.
Okay.
It might be the third.
Okay.
All right. I'm not saying by population, but the number of school districts. We have a lot of school districts, 45 publics and 11 recognized publics. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. I think this is, when people listen to this, the number one thing to come out of all this is what I've been, talking about, and I love you coming alongside with that, is involvement. If we are not involved in the process, this constant, Ben Franklin, he said it well. What have you guys done? Well, you've given you a republic if you can keep it. If you can keep it, that means that we've got work to do. We must be involved. And and yes, it's not easy. Yes, it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, when it is so rewarding to know that we did something, we had a part to play, whether it was just, in raising a student, being involved with the school, being involved with the community, that we had a part to play with building up the greatest nation, on the face of this earth. And any parting words, anything that you wanted to hit on that we didn't discuss?
I just love what you said. I think participation is so important, and I do love our country. I love our state, and I think education is misunderstood to the extent that people don't realize how important it is in supporting the idea of freedom. And freedom is a dangerous thing because it's something that we all want. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle we come from. We all want freedom.
Right.
But we need to understand the delicate balance between responsible use of that.
Yes.
And losing it.
Yes.
And education's the key to that.
Yes.
Good education.
Yes.
And I'd like to be here for the long haul.
All right. That is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, friends, there you have it. Matt Renaud with ROE 13 superintendent. He's also a pastor at Donahoe Prairie Christian Church in rural Texaco. So if you're from that area and you're looking for a church, go check the place out. If you're coming through, want to come down and worship with his body sometime, come and check him out. So thank you so much. If you have ideas, suggestions, send me an email, Darren@BaileyForIllinois.com. Our goal is to educate, to equip, to empower, and just to make sure that we're out there doing everything that we can do, just to keep this God-given constitutional republic, to keep this freedom, to keep this nation until we are no longer. So God bless you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.